Welcome to another episode of the News Roundup. On today's story, we're going to talk about New Zealand, where this ultra-vaccinated, locked-down nation is seeing record infection rates, causing the ire of many of its citizens to reach a boiling point as protests are bubbling up around the country. We'll discuss what is going on here. And so, from Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and our episode starts now. So, New Zealand, one of the world's most vaccinated nations, recently shattered its infection record rate as citizens continued to protest the Commonwealth nation's draconian lockdowns and vaccine mandates. The government recently reported a new record of 6,137 cases recently, smashing the previous high of 3,297 new cases. This despite the network of voluntary vaccinations, a complex of lockdowns, penalties, and mandates that left nearly 4.5 million people, or 88% of the New Zealand population, having had received at least one dose of a COVID-19 vaccine, and nearly 4 million of those people, or 78%, having had received 2 doses as of February 21st of 2022. In addition, another 2.2 million people, or 44% of New Zealand residents, have also taken booster shots. Yet, still, in the face of such bend-over-backward compliance from the populace at large, vaccines that were designed to target the Alpha variant are not appearing to have the desired effect of reducing the transmissibility of the Omicron variant. Now, this situation unfolding in New Zealand isn't the first time we have seen this happen. In fact, what is happening in this country is starting to mirror Israel, where just earlier this month we reported on surging cases and near-record mortality rates being reported in that country. Now, back in New Zealand, while government officials are expecting cases to continue increasing until mid-March, they also expect hospitalizations and deaths to be manageable and even reduce over time. However, the contradiction of record-high cases and vaccinations and increasing cases is forcing the government to rethink its pandemic rules. They recently announced that they would only isolate people with confirmed COVID infections and their household contacts, rather than broad rules to isolate those who showed no symptoms but may have had exposure to the virus. And, perhaps to no one's surprise, the government also pledged to make rapid antigen tests widely available. Meanwhile, New Zealanders, like other citizens around the world, have taken to the streets to protest these ongoing mandates and other pandemic rules. Protesters were even seen chasing Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern away from a scheduled stop at a Christchurch primary school. The protests were shouting things like "Shame on you" and "Traitor" at their leader, while others held signs threatening to put Ardern in prison or accusing her of being part of the Great Reset to increase global elite power. Now, this reaction from the public really shouldn't come as a surprise here, as Minister Jacinda Ardern was caught flippantly dismissing citizens as underclass who weren't in line with the government's strategy of fighting the pandemic. In an interview with Derek Cheng, a deputy political editor for New Zealand's NZ Herald, who asked Ardern this question, saying that "You've basically said, you probably don't see it like this, but there will be 2 different classes of people. If you're vaccinated or unvaccinated, you have all these rights if you are vaccinated." And the Prime Minister immediately responded by saying, "That is what it is, yep." Now, what is emerging here is a whole new way to manage an ongoing COVID-19 pandemic as it moves to the endemic stage. That is, the virus will persist, a point that we here at Trial Site News declared was a likely reality from day one. We were clear that it was impossible to eradicate this novel pathogen with mass vaccination, particularly with version 1.0 vaccine products rushed to market. But given the dynamics behind the scenes, if distinct classes of human rights are to be established in a Western liberal democratic society, shouldn't these types of rules be codified in laws? That is to say, if the government deems that the unvaccinated pose a threat to society, shouldn't this be taken up by national legislatures who can investigate and debate the science and incorporate that dynamic into the democratic process? not to mention be held accountable by their voters if they fail to do what is right. When executive branch agencies start making unilateral decisions based on questionable science and take action on doing whatever the latest in thing to do among the global public health authority profession, all sorts of problems ensue. We certainly can see this happening at our northern borders here in the United States. The chilling effect of dictatorial power can be seen both in Canada and around the world. In the meantime, one can hope that Prime Minister Ardern will come to her senses. Or if not, perhaps citizens of New Zealand may consider electing someone else instead. Food for thought. And that, my friends, brings our episode to a close once more. As always, thank you so much for joining me on the show today. From Trial Site News, I am Adrian, and I will see you all next time.